Are you a property owner in the state of California? Then pay attention to this video because I'm going to tell you how Proposition 19 might impact your property taxes. Whether you're a homeowner who's owned your home for a very long time and is considered selling but worried about property taxes going up, or you're someone who's owned a property and thinking about passing it along to a family member at some time in the future, then you need to pay attention. Because Proposition 19 is going to change the way your property taxes are assessed in a couple of different scenarios. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this video by talking about what Proposition 13 is and how it impacted property taxes. And then we're going to go into Prop 19 and how it's changing Prop 13 with regards to property taxes. But before we dive into that, I want to take a minute and introduce myself. My name is Jeb Smith. I'm a real estate broker here in Southern California. And if you like videos like this, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and leave me a comment if you have one or any questions, and I'll get back to you. So let's talk about Proposition 13. What is Proposition 13? Well, Proposition 13, Prop 13, commonly referred to as, was passed in 1978, and what it did is it essentially locked homeowners' property taxes at 1% of the value of the property when they purchased it. Why did they do that? Because what was happening back in the late 70s is that homeowners who had owned their properties for a very long time and were retired and on a set income kept losing their property because property taxes continued to go up and up and up. So the state passed a proposition that allowed homeowners to keep their property taxes at 1% of the value of that property with no more than a 2% annual increase on those property taxes for as long as they own that property. And that included primary residences, it included investment properties, second homes, etc. Well, for the last couple of years in the state of California, you've seen different propositions show up on the ballot to vote on that would change those property taxes. Well, this year, Prop 19 was one of those that was on the ballot and did pass. While it barely passed, it did pass, and it's going to affect a lot of homeowners in the state of California, for good for a lot of people and not so good for others. So if you want to know more about Proposition 13, what I'll do is I'll link to a video here where you can get more information on that, but I want to transition over to Prop 19 and talk about how that will impact property taxes going forward. So as we discussed, it was a measure, Prop 13, that kept your property taxes at 1% of the value of what you purchased the home for essentially the life of you owning that property, with no more than 2% annual increases. And when you got to the point of 55 years or older, you could essentially transfer that tax base to a property that was of equal or lesser value if you decided to sell. So say you purchased a home at $500,000 back in 1965, for example, and your property taxes have been based on that for forever. And so now you've gotten to the point where you want to potentially downsize, buy a smaller property, and so you've been able to take that tax basis and transfer it to a smaller property. But you could never buy more property. You could never go up in value. You could, there were only 10 counties in the state of California that you could actually transfer that tax basis to. Not everywhere allowed you to do that. And also you could pass that tax basis along to a family member, kids, a relative, or what have you. You could pass that property along to them, and they would essentially inherit that tax basis when acquiring that property. Now, they could have moved into it as a primary residence, they could have kept it as an investment property, a second home, or what have you, and the tax basis would have stayed the same. Well, that's where things changed this year with regards to Prop 19. Now, what Prop 19 is going to do is it's going to allow a homeowner 55 years or older, severely disabled, those that have been affected by natural disasters, to essentially take their property, their tax basis, and transfer it to another property, whether it's lesser in value or more in value. So if it's lesser in value, equal or lesser, they're able to take that tax basis and just transfer it over to the new property. If it's of more value, if you're buying a property worth more than the one they're selling, then essentially what they'll do is they'll take that tax basis based on whatever they're selling their property for keep that tax basis, and then have a step up basis for the difference. So now you're able to buy more property instead of just going down in property. You're also allowed to take that tax basis to anywhere in the state of California. So no longer is it just 10 counties that you can transfer your tax basis between. You can go anywhere in the state of California. And then one of the biggest changes is that now when you're passing that property along to a family member, it only allows you to transfer that tax basis to a family member if the family member plans on making that their primary residence within a year. So if the family member you pass it to was thinking of keeping it as an investment property, as a second home, or what have you, they can no longer do that and keep that tax basis. They can still inherit the property, but the taxes would be reassessed at the new value of the home. So what is that going to do? Well, there's a couple of things here. The pros is that, you can definitely move it anywhere in California. You can do a step up basis so you can buy more property. Those are the big pros. Some of the cons would be if you were planning on passing that property to a child or a family member that was going to keep it as an investment property, you can no longer do that. They do have to live in that property as a primary residence. So, no, but some of the unclear things at the moment are how long do they have to live in the property as a primary residence, that sort of thing. So I believe more information will come out on that as we get more information on the proposition. But in theory, this is going to free up a lot of property in the state of California because you've got a lot of homeowners who've been living in their property for a very long time, unwilling to sell it because they didn't want to go down to a smaller property. They wanted to buy a bigger property, but they didn't want to lose their tax basis. So now you'll have all of those people that would potentially move. You have all of these people that, maybe keeping their property because they were going to pass it to an heir, a family member, or what have you. And because of the new changes in the tax basis, they're no longer going to do that. And or you have people that would inherit property and normally keep it because of the tax basis, the low tax basis, because of that tax basis going up. Those people are likely now going to sell that property because it's no longer going to have the appeal that it once had with the low property taxes. So that's what we know so far on Proposition 19. As we get more information, I'll continue to update you. But it could be good for the state of California because it's going to free up some property. It could also be down, a con, a down. It could have some downsides to those in California if you were planning on passing property along to a family member for investment purposes or what have you. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Do me a favor, if you're new to me, new to my channel, and you enjoyed this information, hit that like button, and I encourage you to subscribe, ask me questions if you have them. But for now, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. We'll see you again soon. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.